Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of SuperFantaFi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about The Witcher Blood Origin finale. Great finale. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, obviously, we are at the end of all of this. It all culminates in this. Obviously, you have Balor going in with Aragon and the other soldiers, because it's like, right, go in there, find resources, and, keep an eye on Balor. But it's like, yeah, all we have to do is, have a blade of Fenwick, which I'm like, granted, if they probably killed Fenwick first, it actually would have benefited them, because Balor would have never, because by killing her, he gained all the power. I figured that's why he was kind of happy at the end, because it's like, cool, I'm free, and now I get to use that power to, kill Fenwick, and now I get to, because for him, it's like, right, you're not blood, but you are still the most important thing to me, because you are someone that I guess, never looked down upon him, where he feels like his own insecurities. Because it's just the societal nature of just what was going on in this world, and especially in Zentria, of just right, if you're lowborn. This might be applicable to all the world, but obviously we spent the most time in Zentria really learning about it, but I'm sure the same thing was applicable from the kingdom that Ayla was from, that the same thing was probably still applicable there. But I think it's right, you were someone that I could cherish, because maybe it's right, you were someone that actually cared about me, got to understand me, and knew me and my ambitions, and now I have to sacrifice you to get my power. I thought it was interesting when he didn't kill Eridan and them. I was like, where did you send them? Which we got an answer for that at the very end. I don't remember their name. They're not four horsemen, but they're kind of like the horsemen of the apocalypse in this world. We saw them at the end of season 2. There was the whole talk about them potentially riding, because them, like I said, they're just like the four horsemen. They're riding means the end of the world. So he's one of them. So it makes you wonder, how do you survive that entire time? Because he's a regular elf. So once again, we never found out who the voice was, but I can only assume it's that witch, because once again, she went back to her world at the end of season 2, so maybe she gave him, to be fair, it's a different world, so maybe time works differently there, because Balor's final words were like, hey, I hope you burn for all eternity, so it might be a thing of time works differently in whatever world he got sent to, because I was under the impression, when it comes to the conjunction and all that, I thought there was only 3 worlds, this world and 2 other ones, but it's actually maybe 4 or 5 worlds. I think we saw it when the conjunction actually happened. So it's in totality, it's 4 or 5 worlds that came together. So he could have ended up on either one of them. So maybe that world Balor is in right now, well, that's one he heard the voice in, but it did seem like he teleported to a different world, because there was a world that was covered in frost. So it's interesting. So did he go to another world and the voice followed him? Not unless that's supposed to be okay, he changed that world he was in with the chaos magic. He was able to shape it and made it into a snowy place instead of the barren land that it was. I don't know. Maybe because it can't be that they can cross over between the different worlds, because whatever world he was in, he was already in. So if he's one of those horsemen, what you saw in season 2, then that world that the witch is going back to has to be that one. So maybe it's not the voice. Maybe I don't know. It feels like it's got to be her, but either way, at the same time that's happening, Skian gives Fionn over to Merwin and got what she wanted, but still was kind of a dick at the end, because it's I heard about what your tribe represented. They were honorable, but you're a terrible person. You betrayed your friends just to get back a piece of steel. It's really? The pot calling the kettle black? She didn't massacre her family and a whole bunch of people. In fact, your family massacred her tribe, but it's oh, how dare you? Because it's right, we have no room for you in the new world we're building. It's what about you, Mary? You're such a hypocrite. It's you're severely projecting, and it's oh, I hope your womb rots and that basically you're forgotten. And it's just jeez, it's you're so far off the deep end that you don't realize how hypocritical you are to bring it up, especially when she talks to Fionn, and it's hey, listen, I did what I had to do, because my brother would have just, married me off, and I would have just been a womb factory, essentially. I would have just been given away to have birth, and my brother's peace wouldn't have lasted. But to me, because my story was being written by someone else, and I took control of it. And yes, I had to do what I had to do, but that's at the same time, it's like she felt stuck in her position as a princess. It's like nothing in her mind. It's like there was no other option. So when the option was available, once again, whether it was Arrogant or like Balor, or maybe both of them came to her for this option, she jumped at the opportunity. But it's still the situation of, you could have found another way, but you chose not to. And it's like, right, did you really think I'd forgive you? He's like, my clan sacrificed so much to protect you, and what did you do? You betrayed us. He couldn't even help but laugh, because it's like, you really, like, how did you think this? It's like, right, you'll need time to forgive me. Yeah, forgive you for killing my entire family, my clan. Oh, let's not forget, you slit my sister's throat. It's not like, oh, I was a part of it, but I didn't do anything. I kind of gave the go-ahead. Would that make it any better? No, but it'd be slightly better than like, well, you might have had nothing to do with it. You weren't a part of it, but you didn't directly have any involvement. You still suck for it. No, you got your hands dirty because you slit his sister's throat. So, and so for Fiol, it's like, right, you think of yourself as this like savior and this good person, but you're a monster. He's like, I should know, because as a monster, it takes a monster to know a monster, but also as a witcher, he smells the monster in her too. So he ends up going toe to toe with the monster, the beast that was summoned. At the same time, they're trying to distract all of the Golden Empire soldiers by rallying the people, because everyone's out there starved, and it's like, right, let's start a riot and get people riled up. Let's bust into the storeroom and get the rest of the food. Oh, there is no food. All that was left is already gone. So they were, people are already starving, and now it's like, oh, there's even less here. But it's like, right, these people have worked you so hard, and they kept everything from you, and now you and your children are going to starve. You, the lowborn, it's time for us to rise up. And they sing her Black Rose song, and they all join together in this, and it's a revolution, and the townspeople are fighting back against soldiers. I even love Home Dude with the big balls or whatever, one nut dude being like, yo, if I die, you better sing songs about me. And she's like, yeah, you and your amazing balls and stuff like that. So I feel so bad for Home Dude jumping ahead a little bit, because at first he's just like casually walks into the throne, was like, oh, don't mind me, I'm getting this. Oh, if you're looking for the food, there's some peaches in the kitchen. And it seemed like, I was like, he's just, something scary. Something's not as scary when you're able to see its asshole. And then he got ripped in half. I was like, Jesus, poor guy was there just to die. And it's like, but I hope Lark kept her promise and talked about your balls, your enormous, massive balls. It's like, Jesus, dude. Because I was like, yeah, we got introduced to that character just at the end of last episode, and he's like this threaded background character, and it's like it proceeded to get he was, it's very befitting, because what is he wearing? A red shirt, and he got brutally murdered, so it's almost highly befitting. So all the while that's going down, Skian, Brother Death, and Meldolf are going to hold the line. Skian got her sword back, luckily. It's like, yeah. And she's like, you didn't have to be rude about it. You could have just given me my sword. Still would have ended all of us, me killing you guys later on anyway, but still, you could have kept up your end of the bargain. But it's like, nope. So I do love when they do their thing, and Brother Death is like, oh, was it always this tiring? And Meldolf's like, we got more to do, my friend, and slaps his ass, because it's like, all right, let's get to it. I was like, I legitimately don't know if all of them are going to make it through this or not. So while Fiol is doing his thing, fighting the beast, Sindril and Zachary are going to destroy the monolith. There's the whole situation with Ayla going after Merwin, and it's like, right, Merwin had drawn her blade, but I'm like, have you ever, other than the time you killed, to be fair, it's like, I was about to say, I didn't even bring that up, and I should have. The irony is, well, who taught her how to fight back? It was Fiol, and she defended herself in the first episode. I completely forgot about that until now, because I was like, do you even know how to use a weapon? It's like, well, you used it to kill Fiol's sister, but I was like, right, you also used it to kill one of your would-be assassins at the beginning of the series. So I was like, right, so it is kind of ironic that it's like, right, you would use what you were taught and you would end up killing Fiol's sister, and now you're going to try and kill his lover, but she's like, no, I imagined the revenge I would get on you, but it's like, yeah, you think you're something special, that you speak for Elfkind. It's like, no, you don't. Elfkind speaks for themselves. They found their voice despite you, and everything that you built will kind of come down to nothing. And so at the end of the day, Ayla stabs her with her own knife. And it's like, cool, you can survive this. Like, if you leave it in, a physic might come and be able to patch you up. Or you could pull the blade out and kill yourself and take the coward's way. Because one way is, hey, live and eventually, try to face what you've done and not even make amends, but face it head on. Or you can take the coward's way out. She's like, the only person who will ever know the truth is you. So I leave you with this choice. And I was so curious. I had a feeling Merwin would go the quote-unquote coward's route. I mean, what did she do, though? She made sure to put on her crown and sit on her throne. And it's like, right, you went through all of this for that, and what does it amount to? Your empire just kind of crumbling beneath you, and Lark is saying that no one's going to remember you. And she wanted to be remembered. Like, when the people show up, the revolt, she's like, remember me, because that's the only thing she has, because she wants to be remembered. But it seems you were lost to the history books. You were someone who wanted to be remarkable was unremarkable. And it's that sad, God, what other story am I thinking of that's going to bother the crap out of me? That it's like, your story is just basically to be the key factor in someone else's story. That's all it is. I'm trying to think about what property it is that I'm thinking of that does that, where it's like, oh, you have no real story. Your only story is to give meaning to the hero's journey. I can't remember I think it's a TV. I don't think it's a movie. I think it's a TV show, and I can't place what it is. It might have been a movie, but I swear it's a TV show, and I just can't remember what it is. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. I was sitting here for a while, but there was some story that utilized that type of thing of like, right, your only purpose was what your story means for other people. That's the only legacy you really have, is just like what it means, what your story does. Like, once again, you play the villain just to give birth to the legend that are the Seven, So that's the only thing Merwin has going for her. Everything else kind of like you're a footnote in someone else's story, which is the irony that she didn't want to be that, but you ultimately ended up being exactly that. So at the same time that's all going down, Zachary and Sindril are going toe-to-toe with Balor, who's got the fire magic, and sadly it's not going the way it did. I mean, to be fair, he didn't erupt. He hasn't like pushed himself well past his limit like Yennefer did. He isn't going completely all out, because obviously we know that would tap him and potentially kill him, but he's not. He's going to burn everything, because in his mind it's like, right, I'm going to get what I was always owed, and that's everything. So he wants to, see this all burn, and take control. Once again, this is all born of his own insecurities, but it's also, like I said, just born from a societal situation. So Sindril has Zachary connect him together so that they can, like, by putting them together, it's like, and connecting us, we could use the chaos in him that he's built up and use it to kind of end up destroying the, I guess it's like, right, tapping into the chaos that's there, and us together, both of our chaos being built up, we could use that strength to destroy the monolith. And at the same time that's all going down, Fjall puts an end to the monster after quite the tussle. I was interested when, like, he took his shirt off, but he started mutating more. To be fair, he's the first of his kind, so the kinks hadn't been fully worked out. Once again, maybe this also factors into, right, a prepubescent versus someone who's well into their adulthood. Not well into their adulthood, but like in their early 30s maybe, becoming a witcher, and the toll it takes. Because at least by then it had been at least somewhat perfected. Once again, it's still a thing. It's still a gamble of when it, like, I forgot. They might have actually told you the exact percentage, but I don't know if it's like 1 out of every 10. 1 out of every 10 might survive or something like that. So, but either way, like him, like taking that sword, going for the long throw and killed the beast. And then he proceeded to rip home dude apart. I was wondering if Did I call him Brother Blood before? I made that mistake in a previous episode, but I'm like, if I called him Brother Blood before, I meant Brother Death. So I'm correcting myself here, but I don't remember if I, because once again, Brother Blood just flows off of the mouth a lot easier than Brother Death. If I just stuck with just calling him Callan, it wouldn't be an issue. But I was worried. I was like, well, it just seems like his right eye is damaged. I'm like, doesn't seem like he's dead. And he would have gone after the others if it wasn't for Ayla stopping him, singing the song "The Quail the Beast," which is very, very poetic because it's also very like Beauty and the Beast, essentially, in that very, very truest regard. And he asked Ayla to be the one that kills him, and it's like, right, we will be kind of reunited, kind of in an afterlife. And she ends up killing him, and he dies in her arms. The day was saved and sacrificed, and I didn't even think about it until she brought it up to Elithine. Elithine, I'm butchering that elf's name. Is it Elithine? I can never properly pronounce it. Ifline, that might just be it. I might have been just stretching it too much. But either way, her thing was you will slay a beast. It just wasn't the beast she thought it would be. She ended up having to kill the person that she loved because of the monster he became, because there was no reversing it. This was permanent, and it was going to completely consume him, and he would have killed and hurt other people. So the tale comes to an end that way. At the same time, Sindril sacrificed himself and Balor to destroy the monolith, and because of that, the conjunction of the spears happened. His, tore open the sky, the veil between the worlds, and in that moment, it all came together. And it answers the biggest question of all we've ever seen are elves around. What about the humans? It never crossed my mind because I'm a big dumb idiot. It never crossed my mind. Oh, the humans came from a different world, which almost makes you go wait, is this almost supposed to parallel real life? Not real life, but you get what I mean? Were humans on their own Earth? Say you're pulling humans from based on their dress and everything. Say you're pulling them from the Middle Ages, or maybe they're from it's 1300 on the Earth that they're from, and then they got pulled into this world. That's why I was like, man, all you see is elves. So how did humans come to conquer them and stuff like that? Did humans just rise up? And it's we haven't seen a single human because they weren't here until the conjunction. It wasn't just the monsters that came through, it's humans, which makes you go, so history is, to be fair, this was 1200 years ago, and so much history is lost in that time frame. 1200 years was the time frame, wasn't it? Huh. I think it was. The reason why I was pausing and thinking about that is because obviously that comes into some Kaseki/Trails lore, because so much of that dates back to 1200 was when the Great Collapse happened. So there's almost this parallel too of that story versus this one, where it's hey, these worlds came clashing together in this, the conjunction of spears, and this was a Great Collapse. But it all happened 1200 years ago, and the world kind of got reset in so many regards, because I said, so much happened, and obviously humans came here, and it's just I said, they weren't the only ones. And I was like, that's fascinating. Like I said, I feel so stupid for never realizing that makes a lot of sense. Why have we not seen any humans at all up to this point? So the world was forever changed because of that, and because of people's goals and machinations. But there's still so much groundwork left, because once again, the Eridan of it all, which we even see his lover at the end, kind of lost him, but not knowing, he's still out there. Brother Death still being alive, and him and Zachary are together, but she still lost her brother in the process. For him, he was willing to make that sacrifice. Because for him, it's the thing he created, he started all this, and he ended it, but he also gave birth to the next chapter of this story in that same regard too. Trying to end things, he gave birth to something else in its entirety. So it's interesting. You see Skian performing this ritual. I guess it was her kind of finally, because she draws these symbols, and then she ends up burying the sword. I guess it's kind of giving her tribe peace, because once again, the moment she dies, like that is the very, very end of her tribe. But I think at the same time, it's like her being able to go in peace because it's like, right, what was ours is reclaimed and has been returned to the dirt. It's been returned to the soil. So all those who were lost can finally rest in peace now that something that was sacred to us has finally been returned. And obviously Lark singing the song about their adventures and what she went through, having to, bury her lover, not even bury him, like burn him. And 6 months later, she's pregnant, which I figured that was going to be the case. I love the Meldolf situation in Ethleen's mom, where it's like, oh, do you have some dwarf in you, like ancestor-wise? She's like, oh, do I look like it? She's like, yeah, probably like a few generations back or something like that. But it's like, oh, see, you and I, we're kind of potentially like related or whatever, so... But Ifleen touches her and tells of another prophecy of like a song, and it's like basically it will be one of your descendants who will sing the last one. And the moment she said that, and they kept it pretty vague because even back in present day, Jaxier was like, "Wait, who wasn't?" I was like, "It has to be, Siri, right?" And it seems like heavily implied that it is, which I thought was so interesting because I was about to say that. It makes sense, which I was like, right, it's so interesting that Vesemir, I made the point last episode, Vesemir wanted to make her a Witcher, but she's connected to the Witcher. She's connected to the first ever Witcher because that's from her lineage. Because we went back, obviously, like a couple generations, because obviously we know that there's elven blood in her family, and I guess that part monster is where the elder blood kind of magic and stuff comes from, because it stems from, because once again, they did the deed after he had become a Witcher, not pre. So that's what makes her pregnancy very significant. So, but obviously the song that Jaxier needs to sing, because kind of like the coming of the end type of situation about what's to be said. So once again, it is that sad thing too of knowing like, well, some of those families, we might meet them generationally, like down the line of like, oh, we know you're related. Like, I mean, we don't know for sure, but maybe like Meldolf had some, children eventually. I doubt it, because like Gwen being gone, but I mean, we don't know. But like any of her dwarven lineage going forward. I mean, how many characters like we met in this show are going to be related to characters we've already met in like the original show? Like stuff like that is going to be like really interesting to see. But then we also had like the Avalek, which I thought was so interesting because it's like he introduced something where he's like, oh yeah, the monoliths aren't just for traveling in other worlds; you could use them to travel through time. And I was like, that seemed interesting. I was like, how would that play out in this? Because I'm like, I don't see you going through time and undoing all of this. But he didn't go back in time. He went forward, and we see him keeping an eye on Siri. So, what drew him there is going to be the big question I'm curious about. Like, what did he do when he got there? Like, he probably didn't recognize Siri as anyone significant, but he just happened to be there because, it's like, right, this is us in Treya 1,200 years into the future, so I don't know. That's just kind of an interesting thing to keep in mind. So once again, setting up plot threads that will pay off, I'm assuming, in season 3. I haven't started it yet. Obviously, I wanted to go ahead and do this, but I'm excited to see where all of this ends up taking us. Once again, I know this show was not really well received. All I saw when the show originally dropped, it didn't. I just never got around to it. I don't care what other people think. That doesn't really over deter me. But I've enjoyed it. Like I said, I can understand maybe like some. I haven't really looked into the criticisms for the show, but like I say, I can understand like pacing and stuff like that, because like a lot ended up happening. Like you could have stretched this out a little bit more, even if you want to make it like. Didn't even have to be 8 episodes. I think it would have helped to have 8 episodes just so you can build things out, spend more time with some of these characters and kind of expand the adventure a little bit more. But maybe it's just like, hey, this is kind of a side story, so we're going to shorten it. Whatever the case, I guess it's almost like a side story in a book. It's not like, oh, a whole other book. It's just a side story in the book that you're reading. That you got a couple chapters dedicated to, and now you're back to the main story. Even though this is part of the main story, it's just, I guess you can almost look at it as like a prologue to a book. You know, it's like, oh, this is the Witcher prologue, and now you're getting into the present day stories again. Like now start Witcher season 1 from here. You get what I'm saying? So, regardless, like I said, I know a lot of people didn't like it, but I thoroughly enjoy this. That was kind of a neat journey, and just what they've set up and what they introduced, and giving us the backstory in this universe. Because this is probably like the deepest I've ever deep dive into some fantasy stuff. Like, obviously, I've watched enough stuff that, like, is kind of supernatural and fantasy, but this is, like, I think this is considered high fantasy. Like, this is probably the most high fantasy thing. Because I don't know if the Magicians would be counted as high fantasy. I don't think so. Because I never, like, I haven't watched any Game of Thrones, so that's high fantasy. So, like, well, I'd probably say, like, the other high fantasy thing I've ever watched was probably Merlin. That's the only other what I think would be traditionally considered high fantasy. Well, that and like Wheel of Time, but like obviously I've never read those books, so my only knowledge of that is the show. But like obviously I've never played the games nor read the books of the Witcher franchise, so the show, this and the original are like all the lore I really know. So like, but this is me like really diving into like some like high fantasy lore like this, so it's really interesting to kind of give this backstory, and it's neat, but also once again tragic and sad considering the circumstances. So, but either way, like I said, I'm excited to see where all this ends up taking us going forward into season 3 of The Witcher. But to everyone else, whether we ever get to see some of these cast members reprise these roles, and whether it be flashback moments that maybe we didn't get in this show, or just in the capacity of like, oh yeah, here's this character and they're connected to this character present day, so on and so forth. But to everyone involved in this show, the cast that, like I said, maybe we'll get to see in some small capacities. Obviously, we're talking 1,200 years in the future, but maybe there'll be some connected threads and stuff. But to everyone involved in the show, in front of the camera, behind the camera, I wish you the best in your future endeavors, and thanks for this kind of neat prequel side story, I guess, if you want to put it. So, but really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.